In today's video, we are going to examine is the recent spike in violent crime throughout our nation due to narcissism. It is exceedingly important that we understand just how pervasive and evil narcissism is. So let's dive deep.
No tears, no fears, fully alive again after this years.
Hello, human family. How are you? I hope you are all well. For those of you new to the channel, I would like to welcome you to Fully Alive Again. My name is Darren. I'm a narcissism researcher, coach, author, and survivor of a covert narcissist mother, siblings, and a 23-year marriage to a covert narcissist. Yes, of course, I have been through hell and back, and I am living proof that you can and must become fully alive again. And part of that journey is becoming aware of the world in which we live. And of course, to all my fully alive again warriors, I'm glad you're back and I deeply appreciate your viewership. You guys, this spike in crime is easy to correlate with the pandemic. The statistics are very cohesive with that, with the spike in crime. Now, here's what I want you to know right from the jump. That tragedy and challenges can bring out the worst in people or the best in people. It can unite people. It can make people better. It can create heroes or zeros. A lot of what's happening in our country and throughout the world since the pandemic is that it's creating zeros. It's creating monsters. It's creating more division, more violence, and all of the things that we don't want as a species. Now, why is this occurring? My theory is that during the pandemic, people have been starved from narcissistic supply. For instance, if you used to work in the office where you could covertly bully someone, as a narcissist often does, that was taken away from them. Just think about how many people started to work remote. How many nightclubs were closed down? How many social gatherings were put to an end during the pandemic? This is where narcissistic people feed and get their narcissistic supply, is in the workplace. Being a workplace bully, a workplace saboteur, in nightclubs, at social events. Narcissistic people are very outgoing to a certain degree because that's how they feed on other people. Now, all of this was shut down during the pandemic. Thus, the Karen-demic started. But now it's getting even worse because we're seeing such high spikes in violent crime. These people are starving for narcissistic supply and they're acting out. Just like this Brianna Cooper, who was violently murdered by whom I believe is a narcissist, and her life snuffed out in the most violent way for absolutely no reason at all. Now, people look at this and say, that guy was just crazy. Of course, he's out of his mind. He's a piece of shit. But he's a narcissist. Narcissists love to kill. The vast majority of them do it slowly. Do it through causing someone suicide. They do it through 1,000 paper cuts on someone, through gaslighting them, driving them insane, killing their lives and killing their potential, killing the things that are important to them. Narcissistic people, destructive narcissism, malignant narcissism are murderers, covert murderers. This is on a continuum and on a spectrum. And some people go all the way over, which is what we're starting to see in more and more violent crime. It is essential that we wake up to this. And narcissism is everywhere. Everywhere. It's in your church. It's everywhere. It's on YouTube. I'm going to say, at least from my research, more than half of the people who are coaching and teaching in narcissism online in YouTube are freaking narcissists. It's stunning. And I mean, not the ones that come out and say that they're narcissists. I applaud them for that. These people are covert narcissists. Where else could you feed and get so much narcissistic supply other than being right in the mix as a coach or an advocate for a victim of narcissistic abuse? That's a gold mine to them. That's a field day. And they are everywhere. And here's the irony. Some of them, most of them, are sharing good information. And I'm not the one that goes around and calls people out and pull their mask off. My passion is creating awareness and helping people see for themselves and helping people recover from the damage of narcissism that makes them weak, fragile, afraid, and living at their lower self. It is so important that we face this shit head on and call it what it is. Let's take a look at what happened to this poor girl, Brianna Cooper, and how her murderer just went about his day after brutally stabbing a young girl to death. This is Narcissism 101.
We're getting the latest on crime spikes in some of America's largest cities. Shocking acts of deadly violence in LA and New York have raised alarms about crime, homelessness, and mental health. Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas has the story. Good morning, Pierre.
George, good morning. As the nation struggles with a recent surge in violence, there have been a number of tragic attacks by strangers targeting victims that they did not know in two of our nation's biggest cities. And it's raising uncomfortable questions about the randomness of violence in this country.
Police say the suspect, identified last night as Sean Lavelle Smith, can be seen here in the surveillance video casually shopping in a city store. Authorities saying he's wanted in connection with the murder of Brianna Cooper. Police say he should be considered armed and dangerous, is highly likely to be using public transportation, and if spotted, should not be approached.
Now there this man is shopping as if it was a normal day, going to 7-Eleven, getting something to snack on, maybe a nice cold beverage, nice stick of gum, and going about his business after brutally stabbing a young 24-year-old girl. And I don't want to get too graphic, but can you imagine what this girl was doing, saying, and what was going on during that act? And this guy's at 7-Eleven as if nothing happened. This is what I am talking about. We do not take mental health serious enough in this country, especially narcissism. People are violating. I've known people who have adopted kids just to torture them. Literally. There are celebrities doing that right now. I'm going to do a story on one of them in the future. Just to have a plaything to completely destroy this person's life. These people are monsters. Do they all kill like this Sean Laval Smith? No. But these are birds of a feather. And that's hard to accept and hard to believe. I get it. I've been surrounded by these caliber of people all my life. This is the ultimate prize for the mindset of these people, is actual physical murder. And if we don't face this as a population, we are in trouble, in my opinion.
Police say the suspect identified last night as Sean Lavelle Smith can be seen here in the surveillance video, casually shopping in a city store. Authorities saying he's wanted in connection with the murder of Breonna Kupfer. Police say he should be considered armed and dangerous, is highly likely to be using public transportation, and if spotted, should not be approached.
We are topping over $250,000 for the capture and conviction of the suspects. This is important to bring more attention to this crime and to get more public response.
The reward coming after a tragic case of stranger violence. The UCLA grad student was working by herself in the middle of the afternoon at this high-end furniture store in Los Angeles.
Now, here's something that's quite interesting that the corporate media has just done, is that they call it stranger violence. Did you catch that? That the epidemic and growth of stranger violence, the correct term would be narcissism violence. That's what parasitic people do. They prey on strangers, and they prey on family and so-called friends. They prey on other human beings. Sometimes I wonder if the media doesn't want to call this out, because the media is full of narcissistic people who love being in front of the camera each day, who love being the swell guy or the innocent little angel that ain't ever done nothing to nobody, just reporting the news, just preaching at the church, just giving therapy as a psychologist. These people are everywhere. And of course they won't call each other out. And it only takes one great narcissistic leader to embolden all of these types of people. And as I've said before, we have narcissistic senators, presidents on both sides of the aisle. There should be a narcissism test before a person is sworn into Congress or the Senate, and certainly as the president or governor, to see if this person is a narcissist or a destructive, malignant narcissist. Because these are the people, this is the energy that has been causing abominations, collapse of societies, pain, violence, murder, ugliness, suffering, and pain since the beginning of time. These people love to tear shit down. That is their MO. And thank God the police caught this piece of shit. And the world is so full of crazy narcissism that you actually had narcissistic leaders screaming, defund the police. When you follow people who don't know what they're doing and who just love to lead and say whatever comes to their mind, regardless of what kind of fire it's going to start, it creates massive problems. And this happens on the far right, the far left. There is no one who is exempt, no political party. But the narcissistic energy, narcissism throughout our government has never been more present than it has been in the last 4 years. And on both sides of the aisle, these people are running amok. And it's affecting our society. And as you'll see in this next clip, how the pandemic is correlated with these acts of violent stranger crime is what they're calling it, when it should just be called narcissism crimes, in my opinion.
The reward coming after a tragic case of stranger violence. The UCLA grad student was working by herself in the middle of the afternoon at this high-end furniture store in Los Angeles. Authorities say the suspect, believed to be homeless and seen here on surveillance footage, walked in and stabbed her and then left through a back door. Cooper's father speaking with us overnight.
It's the worst feeling I've ever had in my life. She was genuine and she was caring, she was loving, and she wanted things to be better.
This individual responsible for this vicious, senseless, and brutal crime, it walks amongst us.
That same day, a 70-year-old nurse, Sandra Shells, waiting for a bus in downtown Los Angeles, attacked by a different man who police also believe was homeless.
It's sad to hear, getting ready to retire, and this is what happens.
Los Angeles, like many other cities, has been gripped by a surge of violence in the past 2 years. In LA, homicides in 2021 were up more than 50% compared to 2019 before the pandemic. And in New York, 2 days after the attacks in Los Angeles, Michelle Go was pushed onto the tracks of an approaching New York City subway car, allegedly by this man.
Push the woman on the track? Yeah.
Investigators say he is homeless and emotionally disturbed with several prior arrests. But are the homeless any more dangerous than anyone else? According to LAPD open data, about 10% of the city's nearly 400 homicides in 2021 had a homeless suspect. But experts stress there is no national data suggesting that the homeless commit more acts of violence than the general public. And advocates for the homeless say people in that community are often the victims of crime.
What we've seen lately are just some nationally televised incidents that gathered a lot of national attention, and rightfully so. They're isolated incidents and nothing more than that. I really think it's important that we go back to providing more services for mentally ill individuals, particularly the homeless. And I think that that's part of the reason why we're starting to see individuals who are kind of stepping out of the norm, engaging in these violent crimes.
Pierre, the other big factor here, this surge of crime has coincided with the pandemic.
George, the spike in violence was pretty much in all parts of the country. There's not enough national data on crime involving the homeless to make any conclusions about trends for that population. What we do know is that the pandemic played a role in the overall spike, and that people in services have been stressed, and that impacts the homeless too.
You see, what all of those violent acts were, those violent crimes, were thirsty narcissists going after narcissistic supply. And the more isolated you are, the more thirsty and desperate you become. They are just highlighting the violent crimes that ended up in murder and the most salacious crimes that you can think of. The bullying, the taunting, the emotional torture, gaslighting and manipulating that goes on every day would blow people's minds if psychologists, public officials were keeping data on it. It is a cause and effect world. The reason that these people feel so emboldened is because they've had leaders that are on the television each day They feel the energy that makes them think that they are running the show now, that they can come out and do whatever they want. I am amazed at how many narcissist people that I've interacted with over the last year who gravitated, cheerleaded, and worshiped malignant narcissist leaders. It's an easy correlation to see. The takeaway here is that healthy people, sentient beings, human beings, have to stand up and have to be strong and speak the truth about their abuse and about what is happening in our world. You see, I could have been a little bitch and just hid behind the scenes and never talked about my journey and the things that have happened in my life with narcissism. But that's not how I roll. That's not my MO, not a little bit. I will climb the mountain. I will take the hits to speak the truth and hopefully make a difference. Isn't that what we men are here to do? Is to leave behind a world that was better than when we found it, to impact the world in some way that makes a difference? At least that's what my philosophy is and my life journey is and has been. And I hope I'm not just speaking to brick walls about this. Because what did they say where that Brittany was killed? Or Brianna? In a affluent furniture store. Say that to yourself. Say, I'm in an affluent furniture store and a stranger comes in for no reason at all and stabs me to death. Don't just hear things. Let it marinate. Feel the texture of what I'm saying. This is a serious problem that must be addressed, because when we address it, it mollifies and shuts these kind of people down to where they go into self-governance better. But when we let them run amok and we're blind to who and what they are, they have very little self-governance. They become in the wild like this piece of shit that killed that poor girl, and may she rest in peace. And it kills me how, I'm not going to say that. But if there was ever a guy that needed to get the shit kicked out of him by the police, we just saw him. My opinion, my humble opinion. So the takeaway here is to be honest about your situation, to stand up, to be strong. Don't hide your abuse or your interaction with these people. Number 2 is that most of the world is completely oblivious to what's going on. And this is why your voice and your story matters. So get some balls on you. Get some courage and stand up and become fully alive and expose these people by sharing your story and holding these monsters accountable. Okay, you guys? I just wanted to chime in on this story because it was just screaming narcissism all over it. All right? But remember, I want you guys to remember this. This journey of life is beautiful. Even all of the ugliness that I just shared with you, I am thrilled to be alive for this great adventure called life. And don't let anyone ever steal that from you. You have a right as a sentient being to be fully alive. And only you can walk that path. No one else. And you gotta stand up. All right, fam? So I appreciate you guys stopping by today. I got nothing but love for you. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. Thanks for stopping by, you guys. See you on the next video.